Good morning. Our first item of business today is general questions, and our first question from Alexander Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what actions it is taking to tackle fly tipping.
Minister Marie Goujon.
Fly tipping is illegal, dangerous and unnecessary. It also creates unnecessary costs for local authorities and landowners and often involves resources which could be recycled or reused. To tackle this, we've provided SEPA and local authorities with powers to fine people who are caught fly tipping with a minimum fixed penalty of £200 up to a maximum fine of £40,000 if prosecuted. We also support reporting of fly tipping using fly mapper software and dumb dumpers. But the key to resolving the issue, we believe, is education and prevention, and work on that is undertaken by Zero Waste Scotland, SEPA and the Scottish Partnership Against Rural Crime.
Alexander Stewart.
I thank the Minister for that answer. During a recent meeting with local farmers in my region of Mid-Scotland and Fife, it became clear that this situation has become even more worrying, with one farmer expressing fury that he had to pay for the removal of asbestos fly-tipped on his land. This is clearly not just a scourge on the landscape, but is now a danger to public health. Therefore, Minister, what urgent action will the Scottish Government take to address this?
Minister.
I completely understand the concern that's been raised by Alexander Stewart, and I know that it's something I hear about in my own constituency too, but I think that we are looking at measures through the Circular Economy Bill, and there are measures there which are out to consultation at the moment which we hope will help to prevent this, but that's where we do believe that prevention and education is key. And I met with the Scottish Partnership Against Rural Crime earlier this year, and I know that tackling fly tipping is one of their priorities too. So there are a number of measures either underway or currently planned that we hope will have an impact on this blight on our communities.
And Ruth Maguire.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can the Minister advise on plans for the National Litter Strategy, please?
Minister.
The Scottish Government is committed to delivering against the National Litter Strategy, and last year we published the updated Code of Practice on litter and refuse, and we'll be bringing forward legislation for a new penalty regime for littering from vehicles, again as part of the Circular Economy Bill. And these are commitments which we made in the National Litter Strategy. The strategy contains a commitment to conduct a review in 2020, and we're currently considering how best we take that forward.
Thank you. Question number 2, Gillian Martin.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what it's doing to improve the safety of young drivers.
Cabinet Secretary Michael Matheson.
Young drivers are a priority area for the Road Safety Framework to 2020. This year we launched a substantial social marketing campaign to address issues which affect young driver safety, including speed, mobile phones, distraction, drink and drug driving and vulnerable road users. The Road Safety Framework Fund has also supported a number of projects for this priority group. This includes Drive VR, a classroom-based virtual reality experience, and DriveWise, a multi-agency approach to improving the skills and behaviour of young drivers. In addition, we continue to press the UK Government to introduce graduated driver licensing.
Gillian Martin.
Thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. One of the criticisms I have of the driving test is that it doesn't really have any rural driving safety aspect to it. Young drivers only have to learn the skills to pass a test in an urban environment in most cases. If funding were made available to school to contract specialist driver education in a type that's tailored and appropriate for that area, we may be able to reduce the amount of accidents on rural roads, which are more likely to be life-threatening. And I know the Cabinet Secretary has contacted the UK Government about the graduated driver licence. But in the meantime, is the Cabinet Secretary open to looking at options that don't rely on the UK Government, like a young driver safety fund that schools could apply for to deliver specialist training appropriate to their area?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I do recognise the concerns which the member has raised regarding rural driving, although she will recognise that the driver test programme is a matter which is reserved to the UK Government. We are, however, engaged with the Department for Transport at the UK Government through a project which they're running, which is the Driver 2020 programme, which has been taken forward and managed by the Transport Research Laboratory. This is about looking at developing new guidance on future interventions specifically for this age group in helping to improve their driver behaviour. There are some interventions which we have funded through our Road Safety Framework Fund, which is very similar, I think, to the fund of the nature that the member is referring to. Some of the initiatives which I mentioned in my previous answer have been supported through that particular fund. For example, the education resource for 16 to 18-year-olds, which is about demonstrating driver safety consequences as a result of poor driver behaviour. And there is still access to that fund available for various initiatives around distraction and speeding on rural roads. So if there are local initiatives which the member has a view that could benefit from accessing this fund, I'd be more than happy to hear from the member to ensure that officials look into the matter.
Thank you very much. And question 3, Ross Greer.
Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government what action it is taking to support the training of pupil support assistants on working with pupils with additional needs.
Cabinet Secretary John Swinney.
Presiding Officer, the Additional Support for Learning Act places duties on education authorities to identify, provide for and review the additional support needs of their pupils. It is for individual authorities to determine the training required by those staff, providing support to help pupils reach their full potential. In support of this, the Scottish Government has, as part of a package of support for school staff, has funded and co-produced specific training materials on inclusion, dyslexia and autism.
Ross Greer.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. There has been a worrying trend over a long period of time towards unqualified classroom assistants delivering one-on-one support to pupils with additional support needs. The Scottish Government's recent announcement of the recruitment of 1,000 pupil support assistants to work specifically with children with additional needs is very welcome. Will those additional staff be required to have qualifications in supporting additional needs? And if not, how can they possibly be described as additional support needs assistants? Cabinet Secretary.
The Government is taking forward discussions with our local authority partners about the deployment of the £15 million in resources that we have allocated to recruit 1,000 pupil support assistants to support young people with additional support needs. Those discussions are ongoing and I hope they can come to a conclusion shortly. Obviously, as I indicated in my earlier answer, if staff are working with pupils with additional support needs, they should be appropriately and effectively trained for that purpose, and that would be an obligation that should be taken forward by individual local authorities in ensuring that their staff are properly trained and equipped for the tasks for which they are recruited.
Thank you. Question number 4, Alex Rowley.
Presiding Officer, to ask the Scottish Government, in light of public authorities not taking the necessary action to clear waste from the M90 Commerce Park at Lethaman near Dunfermline, what action it can take to address local residents' environmental concerns?
Minister Marie Goujon.
Responsibility for the site rests with the landowner Transbritannia Properties Limited, and following further correspondence from SEPA, the landowner has now agreed to meet with SEPA and Fife Council to discuss the options for site clearance. I know that this might be considered a small step forward, but it is a very important one. SEPA continues to monitor the site and they're content that it's not currently posing a risk to the environment or to human health. The focus for the moment, therefore, remains on working collaboratively with the landowner and other relevant parties, including Fife Council, to try and secure a positive outcome.
Presiding Officer, when I met with SEPA, I think 6-8 months ago, they at that stage were saying that they were due to have a meeting with representatives of the landowner. So there's not a lot of progress being made there. Over 7,000 tonnes of carpets and plasterboard were dumped on this site. The majority of that carpet and plasterboard came from local authorities and other public authorities across Scotland. Surely the government cannot allow this to continue year after year after year. It's an environmental disaster that nobody seems to be willing to take any responsibility for. Will the Minister agree to meet with me on the site to have a look at this, to see what can be done to address this issue?
Minister.
I can completely understand the concern and frustration that the member has about this issue because it has been ongoing for such a long time. But that's where I do think this meeting that's been secured now will be a positive step forward. I'd be happy to meet with them to discuss that further and see how this can be further progressed. But it is very much the landowner's responsibility to deal with, and that's why we are trying to work with them to ensure that we can deal with this and get it dealt with as soon as possible.
Richard Lyle.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Minister, it doesn't seem fair that local community and residents have to put up with this eyesore. Why hasn't the Scottish Government or the local authority just cleared the site and sort out who is responsible later?
Minister.
Again, I completely understand any concern and frustration about this, especially when it has been going on for so long, and especially for people that either live around that area and are having to see that and put up with this situation. But we inherently believe that it shouldn't be up to the public to pay for this when it is the landowner's responsibility. So again, that's why we are determined to pursue all avenues for the landowner to take appropriate action first. And I want to be clear that we will pursue all possible avenues for action in that regard.
Thank you. Question number 5, John Mason.
To ask the Scottish Government what it can do to tackle the issue of split ticketing for train fares, whereby it can be cheaper to purchase tickets for component parts of a journey rather than one straight-through ticket.
Cabinet Secretary Michael Matheson.
The ScotRail franchise prohibits the franchisee from implementing any train fares that create an anomaly whereby purchasing separate tickets may be cheaper than one straight-through ticket. Where any anomalies are identified, ScotRail should reduce the affected fare at the next fare setting round, removing the anomaly. The current franchise includes a price promise scheme, so passengers do not have to pay a higher fare than necessary. Additionally, the Rail Delivery Group is conducting a review of the ticketing system across the UK, aiming to guarantee that these systems are focused on customer needs.
John Mason.
I thank the Minister for the answer, and I appreciate that work is being done in this area. But the reality is that an off-peak day return from Garrahill, my local station, to Perth is £29.90. An off-peak day return from Garrahill to Queen Street is £3.30, and an off-peak day return from Queen Street to Perth is £16.60, totalling £19.90. So there is a £10 difference, that is 50% difference in the fare. And especially if a constituent buys a ticket at the machine, they cannot know, whereas if they buy a ticket at the ticket office, the ticket officer can tell them to split the ticket.
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I recognise the concern which the member has raised, and there has been significant work being undertaken since 2012 in eradicating these anomalies. I understand, though, that some of the anomalies actually date back as late as the 1990s as a result of various promotions and schemes which were operating over those previous years, and at times they can come out through the existing system. What I can assure the member is the very anomaly which the member has raised. I'll ask that my officials raise this matter with ScotRail to ensure that it is eradicated from the system.
Question number 6, Liz Smith.
To ask the Scottish Government what discussions it's had with Fife and Lothian councils since January 2019 regarding the traffic flows on the Queensferry crossing.
Cabinet Secretary Michael Matheson.
No specific discussions have taken place with Fife or Lothian councils regarding traffic flow on the Queensferry crossing. Transport Scotland will be engaging with the councils over the coming weeks as part of the stakeholder engagement programme, supporting the evaluation of the fourth replacement crossing project in line with the Scottish Trunk Road Infrastructure Project evaluation process. The evaluation will consider pre-opening and post-opening traffic data.
Smith.
Could I thank the Minister? I'm rather concerned to hear that there haven't been any meetings taking place, because in recent months several Fife constituents have been in touch with me complaining bitterly about the lengthy queues and time delays on the North Queensferry approach to the crossing, making the point that the rush hour traffic congestion is as bad as it was when the Queensferry crossing didn't exist. Is it not time to rethink these traffic flows and certainly to engage with the two relevant councils?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I do recognise there have been issues around congestion at the fourth crossing, the Queensferry crossing, which have been as a result of a range of different matters. And there is a meeting which is due to take place, I believe, in January with Fife Council and Transport Scotland to discuss some of these issues. However, the member would be wrong to suggest that the Queensferry crossing has made no impact in helping to improve resilience across the Forth and traffic flow across the Forth. Since the bridge was opened, it has maintained traffic crossing the Forth on 30 occasions when the Forth road bridge would have been closed to traffic. That in itself has been a significant improvement in improving resilience across the Forth. However, there are always areas where further measures can be undertaken, and that's exactly what the discussions that are planned in January through Transport Scotland and Fife Council are intended to address.
Question number 7, Stewart McMillan.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what discussions it has had with Abellio ScotRail regarding revenue protection.
Cabinet Secretary Michael Matheson.
Presiding Officer, Transport Scotland officials meet Abellio ScotRail on a full weekly basis to discuss a range of items, one of which is revenue collection performance. This includes a focus on revenue protection support to on-train and booking office staff, as well as plans for revenue protection during specific events.
Stewart McMillan.
Thank the Cabinet Secretary for his reply, but does the Cabinet Secretary agree with me that, certainly Abellio ScotRail should do more to protect their revenue and stop customers evading ticket inspectors, listen to the complaints from paying customers about fare evasion, and also have more staff and stations that don't have barriers, or simply have more stations with barriers?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, the member raises a very important issue, and there's been a range of work which has been undertaken in order to help to improve revenue protection across the rail network, including the approach which is taken by ScotRail, which is to buy before you board. This in itself has actually helped to reduce ticket evasion levels by a significant amount, and it's almost helped to improve the income from the franchise by some 38% as a result of a range of these measures. ScotRail's revenue protection team continue to look at other initiatives that can be undertaken in order to help to protect revenue and ticketless travel, and those measures will continue to be proactively introduced at appropriate times.
And Jamie Green.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Cabinet Secretary will be aware that the reason many passengers board trains without a ticket is due to lengthy queues at machines, or machines that are not working at all and they have no other choice. So what conversation has he had with ScotRail around improving access to machines and the ability to purchase a ticket?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, the number of ticket vending machines over the course of the last 5 years has increased by some 60% in order to help to improve access to ticketing across the network. And that will continue to be rolled out as we move forward in order to improve opportunities for passengers to purchase tickets timelessly as well. The member will also be aware of the increasing approach which ScotRail will have to smart cards and the use of smart ticketing as a means in which people can purchase a ticket prior to arriving at the train station as well, to help to reduce the number of individuals who may have to purchase a ticket when they arrive at the station. So a combination of these different methods are all about helping to improve purchasing tickets prior to travelling on a train.
Thank you. Question 8, Bob Doris.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how it supports people living with dementia.
Cabinet Secretary Jean Freeman.
The Scottish Government is implementing the 2017-20 National Dementia Strategy to support improvements including post-diagnostic support and integrated home care. Free personal care for people assessed as eligible, including those with dementia, has now been extended to under 65s, and we are currently considering Alzheimer's Scotland's Fair Dementia Care report as part of our reform of adult social care support. Programme for Government 2019-20 says we will develop a 4th National Dementia Strategy and establish a National Brain Health Centre to promote brain health literacy, and work is underway on both of those.
Bob Doris.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. Can I ask the Scottish Government for a bit more information on how it supports those living with end-stage dementia to access services such as palliative care, specialist nurses and consultant geriatrics, but also, Presiding Officer, how, and it was referred to in the initial answer, Presiding Officer, how the Government will work constructively with Alzheimer's Scotland, who have a powerful and compelling case to make sure that such supports are provided without incurring social care charges.
Cabinet Secretary.
I'm grateful to the member for that question. There are a number of points to the answer to this. We have 2 national dementia workforce programmes, co-funding with Alzheimer's Scotland and Health Board's the Dementia Nurse Consultants Programme, and through our National Post-Diagnostic Service. We're also piloting new models of care and support, including in primary care and through a major new pilot in Inverclyde on home care for people with dementia with intensive and palliative care needs, and supporting the implementation of the independent expert report published last year on modernising specialist inpatient and community care. In terms of costs, we're taking this forward with Alzheimer's Scotland in terms of their report as part, as I said, of our national programme to support local reform, a programme which at its core is being led by those who use the service. And I'll be happy to update the member in due course as that comes forward. I should also say to him that I very recently had a productive meeting with Sir Jackie Stewart and Professor Siddhartha Chandran from the Director of the Centre for Clinical Brain Sciences at Edinburgh Neuroscience and other colleagues, looking at how we can continue to support the important research in this area, which of course includes a number of neuro conditions, but particularly MND and multiple sclerosis, and through them to dementia.
Thank you very much, Cabinet Secretary, and that concludes general questions. Now, before we move on to First Minister's questions, I'm sure members would like to join me in welcoming to our gallery the Right Honourable Regi Torrent, President of the Parliament of Catalonia.